Well, today is all about shining that light and that love into our world. And so we're going to explore ways today that we can do that. We're going to take a look at how we can shine that light and that love into our world because I think, at least, and I'll go ahead and just speak for myself. I won't speak for any of the rest of you, but I think that that is one of the most important things we can do on our spiritual path as spiritual seekers, as spiritual students, as unity students, as whatever label you want to give yourself, as a person who is striving to live a spiritual life, as somebody who really is trying to connect with that light, that love of spirit. Being willing to shine that light out into the world is one of the most important things we can do. You know, Unity's fifth basic principle tells us that it's not enough to know a spiritual truth. We have to live it in our lives. We have to engage with the presence of God and then share that presence out into our communities and our world. So it's time for us as Unity students to go beyond simply living with the awareness that the light of God is within us. We have to realize that for us to truly move forward on our spiritual path, for us to truly experience that growth, we have to be the light itself. Each one of us is going to face a moment on our spiritual journey where we're called to put our principles into action. Sometimes that can bring up those crises of faith. Sometimes it can make us really wonder, what are we doing? Why are we here? But we're called in that moment to put our spiritual principles into action. We'll have a moment when Unity's fifth principle rings out in our mind and we understand that it's not just enough to know that we have access to the unlimited peace, joy, or love of God. We have to share it. You see, it's up to us, each and every one of us, me, you, all of us, to turn away from hatred, condemnation, and criticism, and instead become the radiating center of love that we have been told that we are. If we're being honest, for far too long, our spiritual practices have been focused on getting something from God, right? I'm guilty of it. I have, within the last week, prayed for abundance. I've prayed for health. I've prayed for that right and perfect job. Okay, maybe not the right and perfect job. I don't want to we're good. Don't worry about that. But we've prayed for those things, right? And sometimes, many times, we receive what we pray for. But I want you to hear me when I say the true depth of our spiritual practice is not about manipulating the divine will to get what we think we need. It is not about manipulating that divine presence. The true depth of our spiritual practice comes from the moments when we can become the transparency through which the light of God shines through us into the world. See, that's where that true depth shows up. When we're able to become the transparency through which the light of God shines through us into our world. See, the bottom line is that when we want to truly connect with Spirit, the way to do that is not through molding God into the thing that we need, but instead allowing God to flow through us, through allowing the divine to inspire us in the ways that we love and we care for one another. It's easy to look at the world right now and to think that negativity and chaos reign and that there's little we can do about it. All you have to do is open whatever news app on your phone you use and you can see it. The top 5 headlines this morning were negativity, chaos, negativity, chaos, negativity, and chaos. And when we see that, it's easy to look at it and go, what can I do? Well, I'm going to tell you the opposite is true. There is quite a bit we can do about it. But we have to be willing to stand up and take the spiritual steps needed to shine and share the light that we are. We have to be willing to stand up and take those steps and then shine and share that light. And for me, that's something that always begins with love. Always begins with love. You see, the idea that loving one another is an ideal way for us to live, that's well founded in the scriptures. In the Gospel of John, our master teacher, Jesus, says the following. Well, we'll put it this way. The author of the Gospel of John wrote that our master teacher, Jesus, said the following. In John 13:34-35, he wrote, I give you a new commandment, that you love one another. Just as I have loved you, you also should love one another. By this, everyone will know that you are my disciples, if you have love for one another. Listen to that last part again, because that's important. By this, everyone will know that you are my disciples, if you have love for one another. Now, I'm not sure about you, but the one thing that I constantly struggle with over and over and over again is the thought that maybe I'm not doing enough. In my personal life, in my mental health life, spiritually, maybe I'm not doing enough. And when I'm thinking about that spiritually, it shows up that maybe I'm not doing this right. And sometimes those events, those feelings can get magnified. When events like we have all experienced over this past year and a half happen, and then they happen again, and then they happen again, and then we go, oh, yay, we're out of the woods, and then they happen again. And then we start to question, am I doing this right? I'm going to be real honest. It can be hard to focus on being loved when all that appears to show up around us is the presence of worry and the amplification of worry, fear, and hate. So speaking only for myself, I look at what's going on in the world, and then I wonder, am I truly doing my part to be the transparency of God as it seeks to express itself as healing love in the world? Well, the truth taught by our master teacher, Jesus, is that we will know we're on that spiritual path when we can show love for one another. If we can find it in our hearts to love each other, then that's the moment that we'll know we're right where we should be on our path. The spiritual idea of loving one another looks like so many different things. And there are so many infinite actions you can undertake to be that presence of love. However, the real key to the whole thing is understanding that what you are really doing is making a commitment to be the transparency through which divine love flows into our world. So how do we do that? How do we allow divine love to flow from us into the world? Well, there are several ways to do that, but there are two ways in particular that I want us as a community to all focus on together. Now, the first is something that we're just going to talk about. Well, I'm going to talk about. But then I'm going to challenge you to actually go out and put it into practice. The other one is something we're going to do together, but then it's going to be up to you to go on and continue both of these throughout the week, the month, or even the year. Because remember, unity is all about practical spirituality. It's about that fifth principle. It's not just enough for us to all sit here on Sunday morning and go, oh, that was a lovely meditation, and then go on about our lives. The practical aspect of this is that we live our lives in practice with these tools. And so I am going to expect that we will spend the rest of at least this week trying this out and seeing how it works for us to spread this light and this love into our world. Because the truth is, there are many of us that I speak with, myself included, that when we talk, as we're talking about what's going on in the world, the coronavirus pandemic, the fight against racism, the concerns with poverty, even our opioid epidemic. I mean, I'm not going to get into the list. I hit 4 or 5. We could keep going. When we get to those, what we realize is that what's really going on with us is that there's a certain amount of fear that's still present. And I know we've all explored ways we can confront our fear. And here's another opportunity for us to do exactly that. These are ways for us to confront those feelings of fear with love. Because remember, fear just stands for false evidence appearing real. And when we shine that light of love on it, that false evidence just melts away. So the first way I'm going to encourage us to become the transparency for this light is I'm challenging each and every one of us to commit one random act of kindness each week. Just one. Now, of course, you can do more. You're not limited to just one. If you want to do more than one, that's great. And if you're already doing one, do another. Do 2, do 3, do 4. But let's commit to a minimum of just one time each week that we consciously focus our attention on being kind to a stranger. I think we can all think of ways we can do that, but the important thing is that we act out of kindness towards one another, to someone you don't even know. Bonus points if it's somebody you wouldn't normally talk to. See, earlier we read from the Gospel of John that we will know we are following the teachings of our master teacher by the way we love one another. And if we truly connect with that divine nature, the best way to do that is to reach out in love to another person. And see, here's what happens when you do that. When you connect with the divine love that you are, and from that place with an open heart, behave with kindness towards someone else, that love that you connected with flows from you to them. It spreads out into the world. It becomes the way that we can overcome the fear and the worry. When we commit our random acts of kindness for the world, we end up leaving just a little bit of light, of the light of God with it. And then that light stays behind to inspire the next person to shine and share their light with others. And the next person, and the next, and so on, until we're finally able to live out the words of Dr. King, who reminded us that only light drives out darkness. Through making this commitment to commit acts of kindness, we are becoming the light that will drive away that darkness. So committing to spreading our light through kindness is our first challenge as a spiritual community. Now, there's another practice I'm going to encourage us at the same time to engage in as a way of really magnifying that light. And this next practice, we're going to do it together. And then, of course, I will set you free out into the world to continue on with this. But this is something that will happen during a time of prayer. You see, we are powerful spiritual beings. And when we focus that power and presence, that truth within ourselves, and we focus on sending it out into the world, we can make a wonderful difference, not just in ourselves, but in the world around us. So what we're going to do is we're going to take some time to radiate our love, first to ourselves, then to our community, and then out into the world. And so I'm just going to invite you right here, right now, to center yourself into a peaceful place, into that place of divine connection. that place where the love, the light, the joy of spirit shines out from your heart. And so right here, right now, right where we begin, we focus first on our ability to be love, to be that presence of love. We feel that great love of spirit shining within our heart. We connect with that love. And we begin this sacred time simply by radiating love within ourselves, seeing it flowing from our heart out and expanding into our chest. Moving from our chest up to our head, down through our legs, out through our arms, filling our entire being until we are sitting in the place we are at as vibrating frequencies of divine love, of that great harmonizing power of spirit. And so we pause here in just a moment, for just a moment, as we allow that love to radiate within ourselves. And now we shift our focus ever so slightly away from the inner to the outer. We consciously radiate that circle of love. We see it expanding from ourself out now to anyone present with us in the room that we're in the home that we're in the place that we're in. We see the great love that we are encircling them. And we rest for just a moment, sharing and shining that love together. And now we again see that love expanding out into our world. This time radiating beyond the place where we are at, expanding into that city. We see every person of that city being surrounded by this bubble of light and love. As together we radiate the great love of spirit, the harmonizing faculty of God, out into our city. We expand even further now, moving beyond our city to the state that we're in, wherever you're at. Knowing we have people right now radiating love in Kansas and Missouri, in Michigan and Florida and Colorado and Ohio, all over this nation, all over, wherever we're at, we see our love radiating and expanding and surrounding our entire state. Knowing in this moment that the light that we are drives out that darkness. The love that we are expands, touches, and magnifies each and every person. Expanding beyond that now, we surround this entire nation in love. as powerful spiritual beings in shared consciousness, we see the United States radiating with the great love of Spirit, with that harmonizing principle. We see that love overflowing, overfilling, spreading now beyond this nation into our world. Expanding to each and every continent, taking the love that was placed in our heart as we shine and make our world a better place. And so right here, right now, we pause and radiate love out into our world in the stillness. And now gently coming back to this place, we begin to draw back to ourselves, seeing that expansive light and love of Spirit moving back to surrounding the United States, gently flowing back to our state, to our city, to our community, to our home, until finally we are right here in this moment as radiating individual beings of light and love, ready to continue to express that light and love into our world. We are reconnected with the individuality that we are, the presence of God that we are, that unique light that we are. As we breathe in, exhale, connect with gratitude and re-engage with our world. And so it is. Amen. And so we can take just a moment to just stay in that place, to just stay in that place of light and love. It was nice for right now, but as a part of our commitment to be the light, I want each one of us to spend time during our prayer practices, radiating love out into the world, just like we did right now. Start with yourself and expand that love out into the world, and then back into where you are. And know that as that love goes forth from you as a powerful force for healing and change in our world, know that you're making a difference. Remember, when you start to wonder, when you see those news reports, you see that stuff on Facebook. I know the stuff on Facebook, we all see it. Remember when you see that you are making a difference. You are a powerful force for healing and change in the world. Remember the words of the master teacher. You will know you are on the right path by the way you love. You see, like so many of you, I have stared in disbelief at news reports over the past year and a half. Has it been a year and a half that this has all been going on? And like many of you, I have spent my time wondering exactly what is it that I can do about all of this. I get the whole idea of loving one another, but it seems like we've moved past the time for simply reminding ourselves and reminding one another of the importance of loving one another. I mean, I love the little shirt I have on. I'll have to at some point stamp it. It's like in a world where you can be anything, be kind. It's a lovely sentiment, but we've moved past the time where it's just important to go, just please be kind to each other. It's time for us to begin finding ways to actively show love for one another. It's time for us to begin to connect with the presence of spirit that each one of us is and express that presence of spirit through showing divine love for one another. As powerful as it is to walk around radiating love out into our world, it is even more powerful to act towards someone else in a way that demonstrates love. The best way for us to confront the darkness that comes with hate is to commit to treating one another with kindness, to commit to being the light of God in our world through loving each other. So we take time daily to radiate our love out into the world. But that's just step one, because it goes beyond that. We also make our commitment to commit random acts of kindness towards one another. And when we do that, our love spreads and it grows. It brings us one step closer to being able to overcome hate. So I'm going to challenge each one of you to join me in being kindness. Join me in radiating your love. It's so very easy to fall into that pattern where we feel powerless when we see something going on in the world around us, or when we hear that little breaking news sound. The truth is, you are not powerless. You can do your part in spreading love. So it's my hope that you will join with me and that together we can all become the light of God for our world. Not because God needs us to, not because we feel like we need to, but because the true purpose for all of us in this spiritual journey is to become the transparency through which the light, the love, the peace of God flows into this world. And so I bless each one of you on your path to becoming that transparency. And I bless you on your journey of committing random acts of kindness. In fact, I would invite all of you to share them in our Facebook group. And if you're not on our Facebook community, it's UVC Community. You can search for that. It's our Facebook group. And you can connect with us, share the stories of the random acts of kindness that you did. But remember, we're not doing this for sharing stories and Instagram likes and that sort of thing. The reason why we're sharing our kindness, why we commit these random acts of kindness, is to share our light and love out into the world. And so I bless you on your journey of sharing that light and love. God bless you all. Namaste.